Now hot glue, you think, oh, that's just to stick stuff together. Oh, there's a lot more uses for hot glue than that. What you're going to need for this project is a hot glue gun. Now you're going to have to make sure you have a very specific hot glue gun because you need one with a very small tip. Now there are only a few that come with a small tip. Now they're available at Walmart and I'm sure a lot of other places, but look for one for a small tip. This one actually is multi-temp. We can do a low temp and a high temp. I usually keep with high temp because I want to move pretty quickly. So I don't usually use a low temp. Because you're moving really quickly when you're doing this, I like to use a metal pan to put my hot glue gun in. It's cheap. You can get them at Dollar Tree, for $1. And they're pretty easy just to throw your gun in and you know it's going to take the heat because that's what it's designed for. So that's an easy way to throw your gun in. You're going to want some hot glue sticks. This is what they look like when they come from Walmart, but they come from many different places. Some are clear, some are kind of yellow colored. It doesn't really matter. I prefer the clear. And these are multi-temp, which again, if you want to use the low temp, if you want to play with that, you can use these for that as well. So what you want to do is decide what you're going to do. Now this is for kind of small, intricate pieces where you can't use something that's bigger and wider and is not going to get to the detail you want. So you want to think of small pieces for this. And what I often use this for are handle plates for doors. Because that's something I want to really fine detail. And if you do a little research into different periods, some of the door plates are really very intricate and very detailed. And that's a great way to add some really good depth and detail to your set. So that's a good place to start. So that's what I'm going to show you today. So you do a pattern of your this is going to be a door plate. This is actually a door plate I did for a show called Little Foxes. Normally I would cut it out first. So I would trace the pattern. I would use carbon paper, remembering to put the dark side down so you're not putting it back up on your pattern, and tracing the pattern onto your piece. So you can tape it down. If you have it already cut out, then you could use a binder clip to hold it onto, which is a little easier on your pattern, especially if you're doing it multiple times. Speaking of multiple times, these patterns do start wearing out because you're going over the same lines over and over and over. So what I like to do, if ever possible, is make copies of the patterns. So that way, when one pattern wears out, I can just run and get another copy. So I often try to make my patterns so they're either repeatable in a size that will fit on a copy machine. They don't need to be in color, they don't need to be fancy, so just take your pattern and copy it. So that's a good way to keep going, because sometimes you're doing dozens of these. Move that out of the way. So we have our piece laid out, and it's just, it's more about keeping a very steady pull on the trigger to try to create a very even line. So you want to be able to move smoothly and move quickly, but keeping the same size bead. So that's going to take a little work. So we're going to start, and as you notice with glue guns, the glue goes in the back, but there'll be a point where you're going to run out of glue. So if you start running out of glue, stop, take the gun up, and then refill, and then put it back down. Don't try to do it all down, because then you're going to get a big glob, and that'll be a big mess. So what I usually start with is the border. When I'm doing something, I like to have the border done, so then when I'm doing the inside, I'm not worried about the border getting out of shape or I'm going over the border. So border is basically, in this case, straight line work. So what you want to do, you can do it with two hands, you can do it with one hand. It depends on how good you are with the gun. But you put it down. I put it at a slight angle because I want to see the bead. So if you put it straight down, I can't see the bead in front of me. So I'd like to be able to see the bead. So I kind of keep it at maybe 45-degree angle. And then very evenly pull the bead. And when we get to the end, kind of push it down and pull it off. Now, one of the things you're going to find in this process is the dreaded hot glue string. Because there's a little bit of glue that's still attached to the tip, you're going to get a string. There's no way around it. Trust me, I've tried to figure it out. Won't happen. So that's something we're gonna have to deal with when we get to the end. But let me finish up a little bit more of this background. Again, trying to keep it as even and smooth as possible. Again, when we get to a point where the trigger can't pull anymore, stop, re-let this trigger set itself, and start again. Now the nice thing about hot glue is it dries really pretty quickly. But the other thing to remember about hot glue is the name doesn't lie. It is hot. I can't even begin to tell you how many times I've burnt myself on a hot glue gun. Anyone that's used them has, so be very, very careful. It can burn you, and it can burn you pretty strongly, so be very careful. Don't ever touch hot glue when it's still liquid looking. When it becomes kind of less transparent, that means it's drying. But still, don't touch it until you absolutely know it's dry. So let's start on the inside. And what you have to remember is what you want in front of what. What's the layering you want? So in this instance, I know I want my big scrolls in front. So what I'm gonna do first is everything behind that. And so what I'm gonna do is a technique called a teardrop. And what you do is you do a pillow of glue and you pull back to create a teardrop. So the top of this is going to be teardrop, and I'm starting to run out of glue. So I'm going to put a new glue stick in so I can keep moving. So make a pillow and pull back. And make a pillow and pull back. The other thing about hot glue is because it's a liquid, I mean it's a moving kind of substance, it wants to move into itself. So you can't get too close to any other piece because it'll start mushing together into one thing. So, so be really careful about that. That's when it's a good idea, if you can, to leave a couple minutes in between doing things so that you let it set up a little bit, because the more it's set up, the less it's going to melt with the other pieces. So let me finish all my outside pieces. So these are just scrolls. I usually start in the middle. So what you're doing is you're starting in the middle and you're making a scroll. So that's all these inner pieces are scrolls. And it's always best, if possible, to let the gun lead the glue and try not to be pushing the glue. Now that's not always possible, but if you can, that's the way to go. You can also do just individual pillows to create little dots. So little dot, and you kind of let it sit there for just a minute so it just kind of sets. Little dot. Again, if you get these too close together, they will start melding with each other, so just be real careful about not getting them too close. As with anything like this, anything that's a specific shape is much harder than something that's a swirling or kind of a more natural shape. So like circles are kind of difficult. So what you want to think about is where to start so you can get the best pull all the way around. And if you're lucky, as I just was, you can do it in one pull of the trigger. That doesn't always happen. So you do that. 2 more of these to go. And our big ones. If something connects, I'd like to do them all as one continuous pull, if ever possible. So that's basically the technique for it. It takes a little bit of practice to get, your bead good, to get all your little techniques good. But once you got it, it's pretty easy. So this is what the piece looks like when it's finished. Again, we just spray painted it gold. But what you can do is go in and put in color. So it makes it look like an enameled piece of metal work. This is great for like if you're doing a jewelry box or a picture frame or a mirror frame, some more detailed kind of prop work. You can go in and fill in the shapes with color. This is an example of some hinges I did for a production called The Underpants. This is all the same things. It's the hot glue, so all the black you're seeing is hot glue. And then I went in with paint and filled in the colors, and then I added these decorative tacks. This is just woodwork that you can find at Michael's, at Walmart, just little pieces of dowels that I glued on. So that's a piece that I actually did for a show called The Underpants. So this is a piece of door hardware that I did for a production called Doll's House 2. And as you can see, it's a totally different kind of design, but with the exact same kind of technique. But you can do all kinds of different stuff. So if you can think of it, do it. Give it a shot. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But that's about learning, and that's about being creative. So try it and find out which ways work for you. So I hope this helps you make some really cool things for your sets, for props. It's really fun. So try it, and I hope you enjoy it. Thanks for joining us.